Hi class, today is day 156, Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, chapter 10. It is our last day reading Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, so I'm really excited for today with you. So the video will go up here as well. If you want to open it up bigger, you can click on the link. I'm just going to click on the chapter link so that if you ever want to look at the chapter, you can always click on that link. Then you will obviously type your name in below down here. Oops. There we go, because otherwise I don't know who's doing the work. All right, so today we're going to be talking about supporting and proving our answers with evidence from the text, which we've talked about other days during our remote learning as well, but it's just something I want us to continue to focus on because that's one thing that I've seen us need the most practice with. So when we support our answers with evidence from the text, we look back to the story to prove our answers. So first we need to know, what is text evidence? Text evidence is information you find in the text that supports or proves your answer to a question about the story. So you need to be able to find your answer back in the text to prove that it's correct. When you take evidence, you take word for word evidence exactly how it's written in the story, and that's when you put those quotation marks around it. Remember those two things on either side. The other thing I want to note is that for text evidence, it should only be 1-2 sentences. You shouldn't have like 10 sentences for your evidence. You want to choose like the 1 or 2 sentences that prove your point the best. So our steps are: read the question, go back to the story and find part A, underline or highlight. So I just highlight it like this, because just to show where that part is. It won't stay like that, but just keep it highlighted like that so I know where I'm reading. And then for part B, you choose a sentence from that highlighted area. So where you found your answer, you want to choose evidence from that section that proves your answer correct. And the biggest thing is to ask yourself, does this evidence prove my answer to part A? So I'll show you what I mean by that today when we're reading. So then you would click next. After you review that. My internet's moving kind of slow today. And we're going to start with chapter 10 in just a minute. I just wanted to show you, but we might come back to that, and hopefully it's, yeah, there we go. So then this is where the questions will be. So we'll do this example together, and then we'll come back to it. So this chapter is called Dribble, and if you remember, Dribble is Peter's turtle. I will never forget Friday, May 10th. It's the most important day of my life. It didn't start out that way. It started out ordinary. I went to school, I ate my lunch, I had gym, and then I walked home from school with Jimmy Fargo. We planned to meet at our special rock in the park as soon as we changed our clothes. In the elevator, I told Henry I was glad summer was coming. Henry said he was too. When I got out at my floor, I walked down the hallway and opened the door to my apartment. I took off my jacket and hung it in the closet. I put my books on the hall table next to my mother's purse. I went straight to my room to change my clothes and check Dribble. The first thing I noticed was my chain latch. It was unhooked. My bedroom door was open, and there was a chair smack in the middle of the doorway. I nearly tumbled over it. I ran to my dresser to check Dribble. He wasn't there. His bowl with the rocks and the water was there, but Dribble was gone. So pause. What's the problem right now? There's a conflict. There's something going wrong in our story. Yes. So right here, I'm going to show you what I would do. I would highlight it. First thing I noticed was the chain latch. So his door is unhooked. My bedroom door was open, and there was a chair in the middle of the doorway. So somebody went there and unlocked the door. I tumbled over it. I ran to my dresser to check Dribble. He wasn't there. His bowl and his rocks were there, but Dribble was gone. So the problem is Dribble is gone. So if I was to answer a question, what's the problem? The problem is Dribble's gone. What would be my evidence? Right here. I ran to my dresser to check Dribble. He wasn't there. That proves that Dribble is gone. That proves that that's the problem. Let's keep going. I got really scared. I thought, maybe he died while I was at school and I didn't know about it. So I rushed into the kitchen and hollered, "Mom, where's Dribble?" My mother was baking something. My brother sat on the kitchen floor, banging pots and pans together. "Be quiet," I yelled at Fudge. "I can't hear anything with all that noise." "What did you say, Peter?" my mother asked me. "I said I can't find Dribble. Where is he?" You mean he's not in the bowl? My mother asked. I shook my head. Oh dear, my mother said. I hope he's not crawling around somewhere. You know I don't like the way he smells. I'm going to have to look in the bedrooms. You check in here, Peter. My mother hurried off. I looked at my brother. He was smiling. Fudge, do you know where Dribble is? I asked calmly. Fudge kept smiling. Did you take him? Did you, Fudge? I asked not so calmly. Fudge giggled and covered his mouth with his hands. I yelled, Where is he? What did you do with my turtle? No answer from Fudge. He banged his pots and pans together. I yanked the pots out of his hand. I tried to speak softly. Now tell me where Dribble is. Just tell me where my turtle is. I won't be mad if you tell me. Come on, Fudge, please. Fudge looked up at me. In tummy, he said. What do you mean, in tummy? I asked, narrowing my eyes. Dribble, in tummy, he repeated. What tummy? I shouted at my brother. This one, Fudge said, rubbing his stomach. Dribble's in this tummy right here. I decided to go along with his game. Okay, how did he get in there, Fudge? I asked. Fudge stood up. He jumped up and down and sang out, I ate him, ate him, ate him. And he ran out of the room. My mother came back in the kitchen. Well, I just can't find him anywhere, she said. I looked in all the dresser drawers and the bathroom cabinets and the shower and the tub and... Mom, I said, shaking my head, how could you? How could I what, Peter? Mom asked. How could you let him do it? Let who do what, Peter? Mom asked. Let Fudge eat Dribble, I screamed. My mother started to mix whatever she was baking. Don't be silly, Peter, she said. Dribble is a turtle. He ate Dribble, I insisted. Peter Warren Hatcher, stop saying that, my mom hollered. Well, go ask him. Go ahead and ask him, I told her. Fudge was standing in the kitchen doorway with a big grin on his face. My mother picked him up and patted his head. Fudgy, she said to him, tell Mommy where your brother's turtle is. In tummy, Fudge said. What tummy? Mom asked. Mine, Fudge laughed. My mother put Fudge down on the counter where he couldn't get away from her. Oh, you're fooling Mommy, right? No fool, Fudge said. My mother turned very pale. You really ate your brother's turtle? Big smile from Fudge. You mean you put him in your mouth and chewed him up like this? Mom made believe that she was chewing. No, Fudge said. Smile of relief crossed my mother's face. Of course you didn't. It's just a joke. She put Fudge down on the floor and gave me a look. Fudge babbled. No chew, gulp, gulp, all gone turtle. Down Fudgy's tummy. Me and my mother stared at Fudge. You didn't, my mom said. Did so, Fudge said. No, Mom shouted. Yes, Fudge shouted back. Yes, Mom asked weakly, holding her chair with both hands. Yes, Fudge beamed. My mother moaned and picked up my brother. Oh no, my angel, my precious little baby, oh no. My mother didn't stop to think about my turtle. She didn't even give Dribble a thought. She didn't even stop to wonder how my turtle liked being swallowed by my brother. She ran to the phone with Fudge tucked under her arm. I followed. Mom dialed the operator and cried, Oh, help! This is an emergency. My baby ate a turtle. Stop that laughing, my mother told the operator. Send an ambulance right away, 25 West 68th Street. Mom hung up. She didn't look too well. Tears were running down her face. She put Fudge on the floor. I couldn't understand why she was so upset. Fudge seemed just fine. Help me, Peter, Mom begged. Get me blankets. I ran into my brother's room. I grabbed 2 blankets from Fudge's bed. He was following me around with that silly grin on his face. Felt like giving him a pinch. How could he stand there looking so happy when he had my turtle inside of him? I delivered the blankets to my mother. She wrapped Fudge up in them and ran to the front door. I followed and grabbed her purse from the hall table. I figured she'd be glad I thought of that. Out in the hall, I pressed the elevator buzzer. We had to wait a few minutes. Mom paced up and down the front of the elevator. Fudge was cradled in her arm. He sucked his fingers and made that slurping noise I like. But all I could think about was Dribble. Finally, the elevator got to our floor. There were 3 people in it besides Henry. This is an emergency, Mom wailed. The ambulance is waiting downstairs. Please hurry. Yes, Mrs. Hatcher, of course, Henry said. I'll run her down just as fast as I can. No other stops. Someone poked me in the back. I turned around. It was Mrs. Rutter. What's the matter? She whispered. It's my brother, I whispered back. He ate my turtle. Mrs. Rutter whispered that to the man next to her, and he whispered it to the lady next to him and whispered it to Henry. I faced front and pretended I didn't hear anything. My mother turned around with Fudge in her arms and said, That's not funny. Not funny at all. But Fudge said, Funny, 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 Fudgy. Everybody laughed. Everybody except my mother. The elevator door stopped. 2 men dressed in white were waiting with a stretcher. This the baby? One of them asked. Yes, it is, my mom sobbed. Don't worry, lady. We'll be to the hospital in no time. Come, Peter, my mother said, tugging at my sleeve. We're going to ride in the ambulance with Fudge. My mother and I climbed in the back of the blue ambulance. I was never in one before. It was neat. Fudge kneeled on the cot and peered out through the window. He waved at the crowd of people that had gathered on the sidewalk. One of the attendants sat in back with us. The other one was driving. What seems to be the trouble, lady? The attendant asked. This kid looks pretty healthy to me. He swallowed a turtle, my mother whispered. He did what? The attendant asked. Ate my turtle. That's what, I told him. My mother covered her face with her hanky and started to cry. Hey, Joe, the attendant called to the driver. Make it snappy. This one swallowed a turtle. That's not funny, my mother insisted. I didn't think so either, considering it was my turtle. We arrived at the back door of the hospital. Fudge was whisked away by 2 nurses. My mother ran after him. You wait here, young man, another nurse called to me, pointing to the bench. I sat down on the hard wooden bench. I didn't have anything to do. There weren't any books or magazines spread out like when I go to Dr. Cohn's office. So I watched the clock and read all the signs on the wall. I found out I was in the emergency section of the hospital. After a while, the nurse came back. She gave me paper and crayons. Here you are. Be a good boy and draw some pictures. Your mother will be out soon. I wondered if she knew about Dribble, and that's why she was trying to be nice to me. I didn't feel like drawing any pictures. I wondered what they were doing to Fudge in there. Maybe he wasn't such a bad little guy after all. I remembered that Jimmy Fargo's little cousin once swallowed the most valuable rock from Jimmy's collection. And my mother told me that when I was a little kid, I swallowed a quarter. Still, a quarter's not like a turtle. I watched the clock on the wall for an hour and 10 minutes. The door opened and my mother stepped out with Dr. Cohn. I was surprised to see him. I didn't know he worked in the hospital. Hello, Peter, he said. Hello, Dr. Cohn. Did you get my turtle? Not yet, Peter, he said, but I do have something to show you. Here are some of the x-rays of your brother. I studied the x-rays as Dr. Cohn pointed things out to me. You see, he said, there's your turtle, right there. I looked hard. Will Dribble be in there forever? I asked. No, definitely not. We'll get him out. We gave Fuzz some medicine already. That should do the trick nicely. What kind of medicine? I asked. What trick? Castor oil, Peter, my mother said. Fudge took castor oil. And milk of magnesia. And prune juice, too. Lots of that. All those things will help to get Dribble out of Fudgy's tummy. We just have to wait, Dr. Cohn said. Probably until tomorrow or the day after. Fudge will have to spend the night here, but I don't think he's going to be swallowing anything that he isn't supposed to be swallowing from now on. How about Dribble? I asked. Will Dribble be all right? My mother and Dr. Cohn looked at each other. I knew the answer before he shook his head and said, I think you may have to get a new turtle. I don't want a new turtle, I said. Tears came to my eyes. I was embarrassed and wiped them away with the back of my hand. Then my nose started to run and I had to sniffle. I want Dribble, I said. That's the only turtle I want. Pause there. So, we've read a lot. We definitely know what the problem is. Fudge has swallowed Dribble. So we're going to find out now. How does Fudge feel about what happened to his turtle, Dribble? So how does Peter feel? So we're looking for Peter's feelings about what happened to his turtle, Dribble. So oops, I did not mean to click that. Is Peter feeling upset about what happened to Dribble because he cares about him? Is Peter fine because he knows that the turtle is going to be okay? Is Peter okay as long as he can get a new turtle? Or was Peter sick of his turtle? So I'm going to go back to the story right where I was. So what I'm going to look at is Peter's thoughts, words, and actions. So right here I see it. It says, "How's Dribble?" I asked. "Will Dribble be all right?" "I think you may need to get a new turtle." He says, "I don't want a new turtle." I said. Tears came to my eyes. I was embarrassed and I wiped them back and with my hand. Then my nose started to run and I had to sniffle. "I want Dribble," I said. "That's the only turtle I want." So that is the part of the story that I'm going to look at for this question. So he's definitely upset. So this could totally be my answer because he does care about Dribble. And we found out, so it says Peter's fine because he knows Dribble's going to be okay. We found out that Dribble's not going to be okay. If you remember up here, is Dribble going to be okay? He shook his head. I think you may have to get a new one. So that can't be our answer. Dribble is not going to be okay. Peter's okay because he can get a new turtle? Peter doesn't want a new turtle, so that's definitely not the answer. And was Peter sick of his turtle? No. So we know our answer is that he's upset about what happened to Dribble because he cares about him. So I would start my evidence with in the text. It says, comma, quotations. So now we have to find evidence that proves that Peter's upset about what happened to Dribble. So I know that things that would prove that Peter's upset is his thoughts, his words, and his actions. So I'm going to look back at that part that I highlighted right there, and I'm going to see what evidence in this section proves that he's upset. So his actions, he's crying, his nose is sniffling, and he says, "I want Dribble, that's the only turtle I want." So this is the section I'm going to take, so I'm just going to copy and paste it. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to take out part of this, because this is a lot of text evidence. So what I'm going to do is actually, because I want to keep this part that says tears came to my eyes. So I'm going to do a ... Then my nose started to run and sniffle. "I want Dribble," I said. "That's the only turtle I want." So that's the evidence that I'm going to use to prove my answer. Okay? So now, then I would press. So now I'm going to keep reading. So this is the example. So you can look back at this example to help you figure out how to do your text evidence when it comes to your turn. Before we get to that, we're going to keep reading and see what happens next. "My mother took me home in a taxi. She told me my father was on his way to the hospital to be with Fudge. When we got home, she made me lamb chops for dinner, but I wasn't very hungry. Not yet, nothing yet. The next day was Saturday, no school. I spent the whole day in the hospital waiting room. There were plenty of people around, and magazines and books too. It wasn't like the hard bench in the emergency hallway. It was more like a living room. I told everybody that my brother ate my turtle. They looked at me kind of funny, but nobody ever said that they were sorry to hear about my turtle. Never once. My mother joined me for supper in the hospital coffee shop. I ordered a hamburger, but I left most of it because right in the middle of supper, my mother told me that if the medicine didn't work soon, Fudge might have to have an operation to get Dribble out of him. My mother didn't eat anything. That night, my grandmother came to stay with me. My mother and father stayed at the hospital with Fudge. Things were pretty dreary at home. Every hour the phone rang. It was my mother calling from the hospital with a report. "Not yet. I see," Grandma repeated. "Nothing happening yet." I was miserable. I was lonely. Grandma didn't notice. I even missed Fudge banging his pots and pans together. In the middle of the night, the phone rang again. It woke me up and I crept out in the hallway to hear what was going on. Grandma shouted, "Whoopee! It's out! Good news at last!" She hung up and turned to me. "The medicine has finally worked, Peter. All that castor oil and milk of magnesia and prune juice finally worked. The turtle is out." "Alive or dead?" I asked. "Peter Warren Hatcher, what a question!" Grandma shouted. So my brother no longer had a turtle inside of him, and I no longer had a turtle. I didn't like Fudge as much as I thought I did before the phone rang. The next morning, Fudge came home from the hospital. My father carried him into the apartment. My mother's arms were loaded with presents, all for Fudge. My mother put the presents down and kissed him. She said, "Fudgy can have anything he wants, anything at all. Mommy's so happy that her baby's all better." It was disgusting. Presents and kisses and attention for Fudge. I couldn't even look at him. He was having fun. He probably wasn't even sorry he ate my turtle. That night, my father came home with the biggest box of all. It wasn't wrapped up or anything, but I knew it was another present. I turned away from my father. Peter, he said, this box is a surprise for you. Well, I don't want another turtle, I said. Don't you think you can make me feel better with another turtle? Because you can't. Who said anything about a turtle, son? Dad asked. You see, Peter, your mother and I think that you've been a good sport about the whole situation. After all, Dribble was your pet. I looked up. Could I be hearing right? Did they really remember about me and Dribble? I put my hand inside the box. Felt something warm and soft and furry. I knew it was a dog, but I pretended to be surprised when he jumped up on my lap and licked me. Fudge cried, "Oh, doggy, see, doggy!" He ran his hand right over and grabbed my dog's tail. "Fudge," my father said, taking him away. "This is your brother's dog. Maybe someday you'll have a dog of your own. But this one belongs to Peter. Do you understand?" Fudge nodded. "Peter's dog!" "That's right," my father said. "Peter's dog." Then he turned to me. "And just to be sure, son," he said, "we got a dog that's going to grow quite big. Much too big for your brother to swallow." We all laughed. My dog was neat. I named him Turtle, to remind me. Okay, that is the end of our book. I hope you enjoyed it. So for your question today, what is the main problem in this chapter? And you need to find evidence to support your answer. Then, these are just some other questions since it's the last day for this book. So how did you feel as you read the chapter? There's not a wrong answer, but you do have to find evidence to prove it. Did you feel sad? Did it make you laugh? Did you feel nervous? Were you excited? And tell us why. So you just have to be able to tell me why did you choose that. Then in the story, there were many problems and funny events. What was your favorite event in the story? It can be from any chapter. So it doesn't have to be from today's reading. I just want to know what was your favorite part of the story, and then how many stars would you give it, and you can submit your answer. Tomorrow, you are going to take a quiz. It's the AR quiz for Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. It's 10 multiple choice questions. And then also tomorrow at noon, so at 12 o'clock, there is going to be a discussion, a Zoom discussion. So if you want to join, or if you are available to join the Zoom discussion at 12 tomorrow, please mark your calendars and join. We're going to talk about Tales of Fourth Grade Nothing and Because of Winn-Dixie. If you can't join the Zoom conference, just make sure you complete your quiz tomorrow. All right, I will see you tomorrow, hopefully during our discussion at noon. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to talking to you. Bye.